everyone looked towards Moscow when people wanted the truth about the American moon landing. And on the 22nd of July, 1969, the front page of Pravda was dedicated entirely to the American moon landing, beside the Soviet president telegram to the President of the United States, offering him the following: our congratulations and best wishes to the space pilots. After this statement, no other proof is stronger than having your rival testimony beside you. This is why we are here.
How's everything? How's the son and the wife?
You know, they're doing better.
Yeah, great. You know, I had that attack 4 months ago, but it went with me really fine. It's upon to the people.
Yeah.
You gained some weight. I lost a lot. I lost 60 kilos.
Wow.
Since we've met, 60 kilos.
Exercise?
Well, a lot of things.
Yeah.
Together, a big mixture. To lose 60, you need several reasons. Okay, after you, sir.
You look younger.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And how is it now after having a kid?
You know, my life has changed completely. I was just thinking when I was outside, this is like the first time that I've been outside for a walk on my own since the baby was born.
Wow.
You know?
Two is always perfect. One girl, one boy, and that's it. Bob told me the last moment, it's a girl. I told him, no, come on. I read the news. He said, no, it is a girl. I told him, I swear it's a girl, it's a boy. And this is what I prepared myself for. Yeah. It's a very simple thing after you. It's a very simple thing, but I know I wanted something traditional, really. So it's winter wear, and I wasn't sure about the exact size, so I bought several sizes for him to grow up with it. So you can take it whenever you go out with it. So I'll open it later and you can find it. You want to go to the toilet, right? Ed?
Change my glasses.
Yeah, this way, I think, on the left. So we will wait for 5 minutes for them to come. Okay? Yeah, let's go. Hello. Hi. Hello, Mr. Zivsko. Good afternoon. I'm good. How are you, sir? Thank you.
Thank you. And you?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
Absolutely.
Can you go inside?
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
How would the agenda?
Okay, sure. Whenever you can,
Tea, coffee?
whatever you
What you
recommend. I'll have water, cold water.
Just water?
Just water, because we'll speak a lot.
No coffee?
No.
Tea?
I'm good. We had coffee today morning.
Whiskey?
No, thank you. My first time here in Moscow was in 2016 to interview Mr. Mikhail Gorbachev. Welcome back. That's the one I know. Okay, can we have the mic?
Yeah.
We always blame the wives for gaining weight.
Yeah. Run it up the inside or just in the jacket? Where do you want it?
He doesn't speak English.
Okay. His English is all right.
Yeah, he knows that word. I heard it a lot. Please, let's go sit.
Sure.
That's your seat.
Sorry, which one's me? This one or this one?
Yeah.
This one.
No,
This
that
one.
one,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Let me get this out of the camera shot.
whatever you want.
We'll put it here.
I interviewed Edward Snowden, which believed that had huge hopes, as he described, on Obama
to be something different than your brother when it comes to aggressiveness and war and using weapon. But it is his description, and you know how much Snowden is away from both parties, and he's against the two parties.
He's a Russian citizen, isn't he?
Maybe. Why would Russia prefer Trump? Why? Do you prefer Trump, for example, in a race between Hillary Clinton and Trump?
At least he lives in Russia.
Yes. He said that Republicans are not really phrased in the right way when they're only the only party representing aggressiveness. Democratic are the same. He even supported Oliver Stone's quote where he describes Obama by saying he's a wolf wearing sheep clothes.
All American presidents, they are patriots of the United States.
From everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
They never think about Russia more than about the United States.
It's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear you won't admit
No, you're
that
the
the
puppet.
Russians have engaged in cyber attacks against the United States of America, that you encouraged espionage against our people.
I couldn't say their enemy, because when you say about somebody their enemy, the next point, we must kill them.
That you are willing to spout the Putin line, sign up for his wish list, break up NATO, do whatever he wants to do, and that you continue to get help from him because he has a very clear favorite in this race.
Police state now. Hey, Owl, look.
Here's my card,
Owl,
ma'am.
film.
Here's my card, ma'am. Reach out
Thank you,
to me.
sir. I will. What's your name? I'm Corinne.
Steve Brown, ma'am.
Yeah, no, but I'll give you my Instagram. I love you guys. You guys
Thank
are
you.
freer than us. And Muslim men treat women better than American men do.
Love you too. Thousands from more than 300 million American citizens decide the Democratic Party candidate for the presidency, and thousands from the other side choose the Republican Party candidates. Then, millions vote to choose one out of two, one from the red team or the other from the blue team. Why is the label on the Republicans being more aggressive, being more war creators compared to the Democratic Party, where the publicity shows that they're more diplomatic, they keep more into solving things into the diplomatic way?
Yeah.
Do you have comments on that?
You know, history doesn't back that up. If you think about it, Vietnam was started effectively. I mean, you could say Eisenhower might have started it, but it was supporting the French, but it was accelerated under Kennedy and certainly accelerated dramatically under Johnson, and Nixon got the country out of Vietnam. So it's easy to create these stereotypes, but the fact is that...
Sorry, but you've mentioned only Vietnam, but when you compare to other wars, or even Vietnam...
World War II? World War I? I mean, the 20th century those would be the four defining wars, and they were presided over by Democratic presidents. So...
Then why? Well, why do you believe that the Republican Party is labeled as...
Because the left wing of the Democratic Party, while not dominant, sometimes emerges in its ascendancy, and it does reflect a very different view. So, and similarly, by the way, the right wing of the Republican Party is isolationist as well, historically. So, there is no monolithic Republican Party or monolithic Democratic Party. There's a wide range of views in both. And history shows that Democrats have been involved. And I'm not being critical of it because, thank God we got involved in World War II. Imagine what the world would look like had we not done it. But in World War II, Roosevelt, when we were attacked, until that time, it was very difficult to get the Republicans in Congress to support any effort in the European theater or in Asia. I don't think Donald Trump would be considered a believer in using America might around the world. In fact, his whole approach was to get out of the forever wars.
Captain Khan is an American hero. And if I were president at that time, he would be alive today. Because unlike her, who voted for the war without knowing what she was doing, I would not have had our people in Iraq. Iraq was a disaster.
We have a complex society and our politics is complex. Parties have different views inside of them.
If wars and using force is not a clear differential between red and blue, then certainly the gun rights is one of the biggest debates between the two parties.
I went to a barber shop and I saw a similar sign, so I think that it might be considered in any country as a joke, but it's serious here in America. Can you just give it a look and give a comment on that? How you always support freedom in everything, the rights of everything. Guns is another thing that is really not common in the world. When you go to a shop to see a sign, guns are not allowed inside the shop. It might be considered as a joke anywhere in the world. But in America, it's reality.
No firearms allowed on this property. A sign you will see in almost any public establishment, business establishment.
You might be sitting in a barber shop, and that happened with me in Arizona, and someone comes from the door having a gun on his side. And I asked the barber man, I told him, how is it comfortable to have someone having a gun 1 meter away? He said, well, it's always comfortable. And he opened the drawer and there was a gun there. So everyone has a gun.
So here in Arizona, you are allowed to carry a weapon. This is why some private businesses will choose to say, well, you're not allowed to carry it in my business. You will even see this sign in churches.
Concealed weapons permits require a training and require a background check that shows that you don't have a criminal record.
Right now in the United States, particularly here in Arizona, you can go on any given weekend to a gun show and you can buy a gun and you will experience what's called the gun show loophole. You will not have to go through a background check through the federal system to see if you're someone who should have a gun. The other one is this very strange situation where when you do get a background check, guess what? If there's a question about you and your background that can't get resolved in a short amount of time, you know what happens? It defaults to giving you the gun. We've seen this happen in Charleston, South Carolina. There was a horrible shooting in a black church. A young white teenager shot and killed people at a Bible study in a church. He got that gun because there was that silly regulation that said if you can't figure out who this is or what the question is on the background, you give him the gun.
I don't think it's an inherent right of individuals, of Americans, to own a gun. Given the destructive power of these weapons, like these semi-automatic weapons that can kill dozens in the blink of an eye, I think there should be far greater restrictions.
The quote I made, I think, related to the fact that you go to parts of Florida where kids learn how to use guns to hunt, and it's just part of the life. And so imposing a national gun standard or gun legislation where it might be something relevant in New York City is not relevant in Palatka, Florida.
I asked about that issue with several Democratic people that represent the Democratic Party or the Republicans. It seems like it's a big cause for the Republican Party. And one of the claims that I've heard there is that it's not about the money behind the guns. It's more about having a tone or a flavor.
That's all petty politics. The Republicans are trying to distinguish themselves from the Democratic Party. The Republicans like to present themselves as for individual. The Democrats like to present themselves as for collective rights.
My God,
the fact that the majority of the Senate Republicans don't want any of these proposals even to be debated or come up for a vote, I find unconscionable. We can't fail the American people again.
Unsurprisingly, Republicans are pushing back.
What's wrong with raising the age for semi-automatic rifles?
Unconstitutional. Even the Ninth Circuit just said it was unconstitutional.
Both of them break these rules in many different ways. They're not entirely honest positions. But the Democrats say we want to get rid of guns because it's a public safety issue. The Republicans say we want to retain guns because it's your right and the government can't. And the only way to change this is if the government grows beyond what it was created to do.
Flags held high, AR-15s slung over their shoulders. These protesters say they're here to fight for the future of their country.
Guns save lives. I mean, it's obvious. It's our God-given right to protect ourselves, our family.
It's America, right? We live free.
We see how America is dealing with guns, and we don't find it anywhere else in the world. How shops are there, how it's easy to reach guns. So I want to just to clarify certain percentages or numbers. So just under 30% of American adults currently own a gun.
Well, I think your statistics are kind of low, actually. I mean, many people have more than one gun.
Tell me the reality. Why would this type of culture is not changeable? Why when I meet Jeb Bush, he says, well, guns are culture. You can't take guns out of people. So this is why every American now owns 3 or 4 guns. That's crazy.
I can promise you not every American.
No, I mean when we break down the number, the ratio-wise.
Right. The types of weapons that are easily accessible today cause more damage to our society than we want to acknowledge. Even in the mass shooting debate, you'll hear people say, well, that's a mental illness issue, when, number one, the data doesn't necessarily show that. The mentally ill are more likely to be victims of crime than to commit crime.
If the data suggested something different, then I would have a different view. But violent people, criminals, commit crimes. Law-abiding citizens that may own guns don't.
When you see the mass killings, 2012 it was around 200. And up till 2019 it goes up to 600 something mass killings. So, and 70% of those mass killings are occurred by legal guns. Why do you think the Republican Party raised that flag?
Using guns illegally, by the way. These aren't legal guns. These are guns, gangs, typically gang warfare that creates this.
I think it's much more complex than a Republican versus Democratic issue.
It's embedded in our DNA. It's part of our Constitution, the right to bear arms. Remember, America was a very rural country for a long while.
Well, the Second Amendment of that Constitution is the public right to keep and bear arms, weapons, firearms. Why?
We formed this country and fought against the British because we wanted more freedom. And we're willing to fight here for our freedoms. And that's who we are as a country. That's how we came to be. The Second Amendment to our Constitution talks about the right to keep and bear arms.
People come up to us and say, hey man, what do you stand for? We're interested. We tell them, they say, hey, I like that. And we say, come be a centrist, identify, you're libertarian. We don't have necessarily rules, just don't be racist, don't be a jerk.
We're a country of rebels and fighters, right? But people often forget the wording right before that, which is in order to ensure a well-established militia, we don't need vigilantes. We don't need local groups and organizations that are going to proclaim that they are malicious, that they can have semi-automatic machine guns.
They say that a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Shall not be infringed. So there is a belief from the very founding of the American experiment, the government does not have the authority to regulate or limit private ownership of firearms. Why? because we are a state, a country that was born from an act of revolution.
The objective is to stick in the face of tyranny, say, I'm not going to obey, I'm not going to comply, make the police department bend their knee, and understand that they work for us.
They say, for example, in the First Amendment, Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of the press and speech and all of this. So what they're doing is they're not saying the government is granting you this right. They're recognizing this right already exists and saying Congress won't take this right from you. They don't have the authority to take this right from you.
And every time we try to legislate or create rules around people, if it's always the law-abiding citizen that loses rights and the criminals aren't restricted in their use, then I think that's an unjust system.
So you believe that forever America will have gun shops beside groceries?
I don't know if there'll be enough besides groceries, but yeah, I think there'll be gun shows and gun stores.
Okay. What time do they close usually? No, So it's closed now, but as I imagined and asked Jeb Bush, that there is a grocery and there is a gun shop. But it's closed now. We can come later, but this is Florida. Besides, it's 10 minutes from Jeb's house. It's real deal, Joya. Why did you ask me to? Do we sell guns? Yes, of course. So this is the grocery, honey. This is the gun shop, and this is the gas station. As simple as that.
There's 1.2 million people that can carry a weapon in a concealed fashion out in the open in this state. And crime here is actually, violent crime is low.
There's an active shooter situation in South Florida.
Oh my God! That rapid roar of death and dying in another American school.
We don't know, but we're entering the building.
You don't see the epidemic of urban violence that exists at the scale that exists, say, now in Chicago, tragically, and many other areas.
Right here in Newtown, Connecticut, the site today of a mass shooting, and this time, gunfire aimed at elementary school children.
Can you imagine being a parent of a little child who saw this scene that you're looking at right now?
This is $18.
Metal?
Yeah, for an AK.
Yeah. I remember the first time when I was a kid to watch a gun used against a human being. And it was in an American movie. And when I visited Russia for the first time, I was a bit worried because of what I've been seeing produced from Hollywood. It's clear how much exaggeration was in those movies. But the reality of guns in America is beyond everything you see in a cinema.
جرب السلاح اللي تبيه. السلاح فيها وتمشى محل. Perfect parts made perfect. Educate yourself. It's just your right. This segment should be about the future of America or the future of the two parties. I don't know if you're a fan of movies. Do you have time to see movies?
We stream. You know, we haven't gone to the movies in 2 years, but we watch them on HBO Max, on Netflix, on Disney, on Apple. We have all of the streaming.
Nice. And did you have the chance to watch, for example, the two movies are related to your family, which is The W and Vice?
Neither.
Neither? Why?
Why? Because I don't think that they gave a fair appraisal. I was anticipating they wouldn't give a fair appraisal. I know my brother pretty good. I don't have to have Oliver Stone tell me what he thinks of him, because I know he doesn't like him.
First, I saw many posters here showing that how presidents fear
your films, or I saw one of those posters
there.
there.
Cartoon. Yeah.
So it shows that how President Clinton is worried that you'll film a film about him. Your films, your movies are always related to such things. We want to go back to your early days.
I would love to scare them. It would be great if you could actually affect a change. And the other day, yesterday, somebody told me that they were with President Bush's daughter at a party.
Yes.
And I'd heard this story before, that Mr. Bush, George W., more power to him, actually enjoyed the movie about him. And he laughed. And in other words, he has a decent sense of humor, because he was able to laugh at himself. And I was quite surprised. I thought he might not like it or not see it, but apparently he has seen it and liked it.
Hitchcock is a great director that once says that in a normal movie, in a feature movie, the director is God. He sets facts. But when it is a documentary, God is the director. He because facts should be said. But when I said that to Oliver Stone himself, he said, well, Hitchcock never did documentaries. We have the right to say the things as we see.
I agree with that.
But you said they're biased in a way.
Yeah, good point. I think Mr. Hitchcock, as much as I admire him, never did a documentary as far as I know. Although some of his films are really shot sometimes like documentaries. No, it's important not to be overbearing, but to really, in a documentary, first of all, you have to lay out the facts.
Totally. 99% of Hollywood is left-leaning or way out in left field.
I wrote Scarface, which many people, I think in the Middle East, love Scarface. A lot of people do. And they like the guns and the shooting and the cocaine. And then
we use them less than Americans.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
This is an entrance of a school, of a high school in America.
This is a troubling development even since I have been alive. And we've had horrific tragedies, mass shootings involving schools. Schools in Newtown, Connecticut, a school in Parkland, Florida. Loss of young lives was extremely tragic. And to see a magnetometer in school is, as long as I've been alive, is one of the more disturbing things you can see in our society. I have seen the transition from free and open schools to a place where we now commonly have magnetometers, and even more common, armed police officers within schools, particularly high school.
Mentioning Chicago, you've mentioned Chicago, and it's the right example that I might use to explain what do I mean by that. How is it a culture? In Chicago in 2017, they celebrated the lowest rate of people get killed because of weapon use, and the number was around 676.
Horrible.
And to compare apple to apple, Chicago has the same population of my country, Kuwait, around maybe Kuwait even more.
And an explosive development near the Persian Gulf. Word that Iraq has invaded neighboring state of Kuwait, with fighting reported along the border. The residents say that they were awakened by machine gun fire and heavy artillery. For weeks, 100,000 Iraqi troops have been reported massing near the border.
Just imagine that, how we talk about 1990, how it was war and everyone is dying. That is even a fewer number than what Chicago celebrates in 2017 by saying, wow, we bring the number down.
That's right. It's outrageous. And we hear about the loss of life in all sorts of contexts, but very seldom do you hear about this violence that's perpetrated principally on young people, principally black young Chicagoans, and in a very permissive city.
Police tell us the city had a sharp drop in violence in 2017.
But a shooting overnight shows us the challenge is still facing Chicago. A man was shot and killed while driving in the Avondale neighborhood a little more than 2 hours after the clock struck midnight.
Meanwhile, we just got the crime numbers for 2017, and they show a significant reduction.
Well, John, it's a sign of just how bad things are here in Chicago. That 650 murders last year is an improvement from 2016, when 2 people a day were killed in this city.
2.1 million population, more than 650 people are killed because of gun attacks, even though we have the same population like Chicago.
This is the thing that I couldn't understand. And I don't want to leave this house before saying, having the greatest power, the greatest intelligence, greatest law, greatest country, and still the numbers say differently. Why?
Well, they're not mutually exclusive. You can be a great nation with great opportunities and still have deeply flawed systems. But you mentioned two things that I think have a root cause that goes far beyond the security question. You mentioned sexual assault of women, which is disturbingly a high percentage. I just saw a stat the other day that said 20% of college women attending classes at U.S. universities will be the victim of some form of sexual assault. One is too many, but 20% is unacceptable. And then you mentioned the violence in some American cities, particularly you mentioned Chicago being an extremely violent city, at least in a portion of Chicago. Too many Americans, and I experienced this during my FBI career, think law enforcement is the answer and law enforcement is the blame. If we just had more security, fewer women would get sexually assaulted. If we just had more cops in Chicago, weekends would be less violent. And I'm here to tell you that's not accurate. With regard to violence, to think more cops are the answer to gun crimes on weekends in Chicago, when there has been police chief after police chief after police chief, and none of them seem to really get their arms around the problem, that's a sign that it's a far deeper problem than the number of cops and security. It's a problem of jobs, education, racial differences. It's a whole of society problem that's needed if we're going to fix America's problems. Let's stop saying the government's the answer, the cops are the answer. Give that to the FBI. Let's hope the state handles this. We've got to deal with our issues as a whole of society.
I'm a foreigner, so if I wanted, for example, to buy a gun here, what do I need?
You need to be a Florida resident, you need to be a United States citizen or a resident from the United States. You have to be 21 or older, and to be able to pass a background check, basically not have a criminal record.
And what type of background do you need from me to buy a gun?
It's a criminal background check that we run. Once you...
If I didn't do ever a crime, I'll get a gun. That's it.
If you're clean, yes.
That's it. I don't need to be, I know how to use it or...
Not really.
Okay, so I can buy tomorrow. What time do you open?
We open at 10.
At 10 in the morning. Thank you very much.
It's better in the morning, okay?
Yes.
In the morning.
I will try. I don't promise you, but I'll try, okay? Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you. So العملية بسيطة يا Song. It's very easy. We come back, play some football there, buy some dress and buy a gun. And they told me they can also do a home delivery, honey. Home delivery. سهلة. بس يعني Governor جيب كان زعلان. بيقول ما فيش جروسري جنبيها محل جن شوب. هو كان جروسري و ATM ودليفري يعني الأمور زي الورد. تمام.
Just the old thinking, which is why are Americans so comfortable with guns? Well, they've always been there. In the older days, they said an armed society is a polite society. And that's because if you know someone has a gun, you're less likely to be aggressive and start a fight. If anything, could create some violent conflict.
The traitors in Congress that have betrayed us know we're coming. We're coming, swamp creatures! We're coming for all you commie traitors in Congress that have stabbed us in the back. You stabbed us in the back one too many times. And we're coming with truth and justice and non-violent civil disobedience. Go to the left of the vehicle. This is history happening!
6th of January is a scene that showed the biggest split between the Republican and the Democratic Party. The American politics has been always dramatic. and political leaders sometimes have an acting background.
But for sure, he's a better actor when he became a president.
I shared with the ambassador, while going to the theater, the dialogue that I had with Mr. Gorbachev when I asked him about the speech of Reagan beside Berlin Wall, when he said, "Mr. Gorbachev, turn down this wall." Mr. Gorbachev then answered me by saying, "Reagan is a better actor in politics than his career in Hollywood." The ambassador replied on that story by saying, "Politics is a theater, but with interest."
This is
Oh, please ask me this question. Oh, please.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. The infographics for that would be disturbing to Jeb Bush, because the infographics are that many Republicans believe that Trump won the election. What does he say about that? That's not an exaggeration, that's a fact. When you poll them, large numbers of Republicans say, yes, I think the election was stolen from Trump. I think he's actually the president. There's another subset that believes he's coming back someday. It's like the return of Jesus Christ. And that has led to violence. So, you know. Aha. I knew he was good, but not that good. I don't need a mic. I speak loudly.
If 25th of December represent a religious day, if 11th September represent terrorism and homeland security, what does the 6th of January stand for? In the next, whenever the 6th of January come every year and what would American remember?
Well, I hope they remember it as an exaggerated example of this massive divisiveness that exists, because we've gone beyond it.
Don't you feel that, some feel that even the person that you've served under as a governor of Florida, when you were an FBI officer in Florida, Jeb Bush, said that maybe in a way it's considered an exaggeration what happened. Yes, it is part of our new American calendar, but still it's highlighted more than it should be, if I can say.
So I think it's very important to put anything in proper context, lest it be blown out of proportion in either way, right? So if you study all the available videotape and recording from that day at the Capitol, you'll see a few important things. Number one, the vast majority of the people who attended that rally remained outside the Capitol.
But it turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. And that video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, the video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim.
I mean, if you listen to the left-leaning press, it was an insurrection to take over the government. If you listen to the right-leaning press, they're freedom fighters. I mean, come on. It's neither. And that balance will come back. It was a horrible day, though, for our American political system, and we should learn from it.
They were people who were showing up because they felt they wanted to support their guy, Donald Trump. They feel aggrieved. They felt that perhaps there were irregularities throughout the states and counties in America with regard to election counting, and they wanted to show up and represent their cause. Those were the vast majority of people, and they remained outside the building. But
Keep it moving! Let's go! Keep it moving! Let's go! Let's go! Keep it moving! Let's go! Let's go! Keep it moving!
there was about $30 million worth of property damage to the Capitol. But far more important than property damage is what their cause was. Why were they there? inside. I will give you this. There are many people inside. You can see them wandering around. They can't believe they got inside the United States Capitol.
Is this the city? Where the f are they? There's gotta be something in here we can against these scumbags.
They're looking like, what do I do now? People are going on their social media saying, I'm inside the Capitol.
Hey, man. Glad to see you guys. You guys are patriots. Look at this guy. He's got covered in blood. God bless you.
Yes. Face with some kind of plastic bullet.
Any chance I could get you guys to leave the Senate wing?
We will. I've been making sure they ain't disrespected.
We love you guys. We love the cops. It's only a matter of time. Justice is coming.
But then there's a hardcore group. And that hardcore group, and you can see them, they appear organized, they're stacked up in tactical formations, they've brought weapons with them, they're breaching doors, they're trying, and what's the cause? Stop the ratification of the Electoral College vote. Stop it.
Give me an example that shows the power of them.
Well, I mean, the assault on the Capitol on January 6th is a pretty good example, right? That a bunch of what appear to be autonomous groups were all of a sudden together in a common action trying to prevent the culmination of our presidential election from taking place in that building.
The problem I have with that is you're trying to stop our system. You're trying to stop the peaceful transfer of power. You may absolutely hate the results of the election, but do you hate our form of government, the way we transfer power, so much that you're willing to harm, even kill? There were chants to kill the Vice President of the United States. I believe that the Vice President of the United States was in serious physical danger that day.
Who are they? When you say them, they, who does those decisions? Whom to go in, whom to go out?
So within the militant fringe of the white supremacist movement, they're because they recognize they're under law enforcement scrutiny, they have adopted a methodology they call leaderless resistance. So they don't want to be part of above-ground organizations.
People have been acting like January 6th was just a big protest. On that day, people died.
One person died.
No, well, people died that day and in the coming days.
One person died on that day. One person died on that day. There's a difference.
But also people died from the causes of that day.
You didn't say that, sir. You didn't say that.
And that's what I meant to specify.
That's the problem. That's it. On that day, one person died. Ask the Babbitt.
Okay, and then people in the next coming days succumbed from their injury. But I'm saying it now, okay?
I understand.
People in the next coming days succumb to their injuries.
But the end, I know that what they hear first sticks with them.
They wanted to kill the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi.
It's a blemish on our country for sure. Whether it's an insurrection or not, and I think the majority of the people that broke into the Capitol were there for a lot of reasons. They weren't there to overturn the government or overturn the election, but some were there to do it. And they should be punished, and they are being punished. And there should be zero tolerance for that.
Because I've listened to lots of news reporting on ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, OAN, Newsmax, Epic Times. I've listened to all of it, and I still can't fetter out the truth. So I thought if I came down here today, exercised my First Amendment right to listen to what was being said about the 600 people that are being held as to why they're actually being held, what's truthful.
Every belief has its own temple wherever you are in the world. And both parties belong to the same temple, even if they had different colors. They all live and develop according to the Constitution, and they all seek the same goal since day one.
That's a little brief about it, if you would like to read it. This is how I want to say the story. Whenever I'm discussing any topic with anyone, anywhere in the world, we always go back to the United States of America. And we tried as much as possible to meet different personnels from all sectors to understand what we've called the American roadmap. A bit of history, a bit of present, and the future. In your father's early days, he was asked to join the Democratic Party, but he refused because he wanted to stand with the Republican Party. He served as a Republican president, and then he lost in his second period against Clinton's, but that never stopped him. In this book, which is under the title of Last Republicans, it says that asked whom, he's talking about asking your father, of course, asked whom he would vote for in a match between Trump and Hillary Clinton. He responded, I think I'd probably be for Hillary over Trump, if that was the choice. A vote he confirmed after election day, I'm just down on Trump.
Trump? No, I never go Republican.
Never?
Never, except one time.
Who for whom?
Okay. Well, Gore chose his running mate was a Jewish senator, and I couldn't take it. So I vote for
Republicans that time.
One time only.
If he said he didn't, he didn't. I mean, I can tell you can take it to the bank when my dad says something. So if he said he didn't vote for Trump, he didn't.
Then
it would have been the first non-Republican that he probably voted for in his adult life.
Political decision maybe he made.
Well, it wasn't a decision. He was a private citizen, out of politics. But look.
Well, we have a crisis now. I think American politics have a crisis because the right wing of the Republican Party, the religious part, the KKK, all that is taken over the Republican Party.
What did you discover after being undercover? I mean, there is books written about that, but what did you know more? How much powerful are they? And how much do they have influence on the current America?
I think the movement is far more powerful now. As I said, white supremacy has always been part of our politics, and there have always been politicians who catered to and appealed to white supremacist groups.
You have red state governors fighting against a blue a federal administration. You have unvaccinated and vaccinated fighting. You have maskers and non-maskers fighting. And they're really falling, in many cases, or being forced into a political framing of these discussions that should be happening outside of politics. So I'm not very optimistic about the near future.
The United States is intended to be a country that grows, a country that learns from its mistakes. And I don't believe we've lost that.
Thank you very much, Edward. Thank you. It was always a pleasure to talk to you. I hope to see you again, and thank you for your time. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Whether the two parties are serving the public or the other way around, America is facing a very critical timing that might not only decide which party will win the next election, but the future of America's democracy existence.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Edward. Thank you, and see you soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Make sure you wash your hands.
Yeah, sure,
Because
sure,
my
sure,
baby
I
is
will.
sick.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Edward.
Do you guys want pictures?
Yeah, they asked for that. Yeah, please.